The movie, War Games, starts with two individuals approaching a house. They proceed to present their identification to an unconventional security system, which is actually a dresser mirror. Beyond the mirror lies a hidden missile launching facility. Once their identities were verified, they gain access to the interior, taking their positions at the heart of the base. These two individuals are revealed to be United States Air Force Strategic Missile Wing Controllers, and in the very intense scene, they receive orders to initiate missile launches, and following a thorough validation and authentication process, they initiate the missile launch sequenced by entering a designated launch code. The controllers insert the launch key and begin rotating them, initiating the countdown. However, tension arises when one of the controllers becomes increasingly anxious and attempts to verify the order once more. To his dismay, there was no answer on the other line, and his fellow controller reminds him that he's deviating from the established procedure. With only 5 seconds remaining, the anxious controller refuses to turn the launch key, prompting the other controller to draw his gun and issue an order. Despite the escalating situation, the anxious controller remains steadfast in his refusal, introducing a challenging moral dilemma and setting the stage for the ensuing conflict. Our scene then transitions to the NORAD office, which is depicted as a bustling hub of activity. Inside, we're introduced to Dr. John, which is a prominent figure in the room. The office is filled with personnel engaged in a discussion about the recent failed missile attempts, and Dr. John advocates for automation, arguing that removing human intervention would eliminate the possibility of refusal or hesitation in critical moments. The focus then shifts to the War Operation Plan Response, a powerful computer system that continuously runs war simulations and learns from them, and Paul Richter, the assigned engineer, provides an overview of the WOPR's capabilities. Currently, the computer sends missile launch requests to human operators holding the keys. However, Dr. John proposes the complete replacement of human involvement with electronic relays, removing the need for human decision-making altogether. The scene then concludes with Dr. John's idea being considered to be recommended for the president, setting the stage for the unfolding conflict between man and machine. The subsequent scene features Broderick's character, David Lightman, engrossed in playing the arcade game Galaga, occasionally glancing at his watch. Displayed prominently on the arcade machine is David's high score. A young boy named Howie approaches and asks David to take over while he rushes off to his class, and upon entering his classroom, David is met with sarcastic remarks from his biology teacher, who also hands him back his failed exam. To add to David's misfortune, Jennifer Mack, another student who also failed the exam, sits in front of his chair and laughs at his jokes. Undeterred, David continues his humorous banter with the teacher, which leads to the teacher instructing him to visit the principal's office. While waiting in the reception area, David subtly pulls open a drawer under the receptionist's computer and notices a list of words with strike-throughs except for the last word, pencil. And leaving the school premises, Jessica approaches David and offers him a ride, mentioning that they will both be attending summer school due to their failed exams. However, David disagrees and takes her to his house instead, and there he connects to the school network using the word pencil as a login password to the school server. He proudly shows Jessica how he altered his biology grade from an F to a C, and although he attempts to change Jessica's grade as well, she declines, expressing concerns about potential trouble. David respects her decision and reverts her grade back to its original state before she leaves his room. Once Jessica departs, David mischievously changes her grade back to an A, and in the next scene, we see men replacing the human controllers in the US Air Force Strategic Missile Wing with electronic dials symbolizing the automation of the missile launch process. Wait, hold on. Did you subscribe to our channel? Come on guys, you're here, you're watching the video, help us out by hitting the subscribe button, as it really helps out me and my team to make more videos for you guys. And now, let's get back to the recap. Well, the scene showcases the shifting LED lights on the dials, and the WOPR highlighting the transition from human control to computerized systems. Back at David's home, the family gathers for dinner while he casually flips through a magazine, stumbling upon a teaser ad for a computer game. Intrigued, he takes note of the company's address and retreats to his room. He dials the operator, seeking information on area codes and phone numbers associated with the company and its location, and with the obtained details in hand, David initiates a program that dials various numbers, and the scene concludes with a flurry of phone numbers appearing on the screen. The following day, while engrossed in an arcade game, Jessica approaches David and requests him to change her grade, and willing to assist, David agrees and accompanies Jessica back to his house. There, he shares his recent program with her, and when she asks him to proceed with altering her grade, he reveals that he's already accomplished the task. He experiments with different phone numbers using the program and discovers a bank, an airline flight reservation system, and a mysterious system that prompts from the user login without providing identification. Driven by curiosity, David seeks assistance from his hacker friends, showcasing a printed text he received from the program. The hackers explain the concept of a backdoor, a simple password that developers can use to access a system. Intrigued, they advise David to uncover the identity of the system's developer, and one of the hackers suggests that David begin by navigating through the first game in the system, known as Falcon's Maze. The scene that leaves us on the cusp of an exciting exploration into the depths of the enigmatic computer system and its potential implications. In the next sequence, we see David immersing himself in libraries, poring over books, and meticulously examining old newspapers in his quest for answers. Despite his efforts, he faces repeated failures in cracking the system's password. However, after a week of not seeing him, Jessica pays a visit to David's house. He eagerly explains his endeavors and even shares a tape featuring Professor Stephen Falcon, the system's creator. He then presents Jessica with an obituary of the presumed dead professor, whose child and wife tragically perished in an accident prior to his own demise. During their conversation, he decides to try Joshua, the name of the professor's son, as a login password for the system, and to his amazement, it works. The system engages in dialogue with David, resembling the professor and questioning why the account was deactivated on the day of his passing. David clarifies that it was an error and requests the system to initiate the game Global Thermonuclear War. The system then proceeds by asking David if whether he prefers to represent the United States or the Soviet Union, and opting for the latter, David proceeds to specify his desired primary targets by entering a list of cities. Meanwhile, in the NORAD office, an alarming missile warning emerges from the Soviet Union. Officers report the imminent arrival of 11 missiles to strike the United States within 11 minutes. Simultaneously, in David's room, Jessica and David find themselves staring at the computer screen, which displays similar images of missile trajectories. The scene at NORAD highlights General Jack's perplexity regarding the absence of satellite-detected launches. Once again in David's room, his father's voice calls out from outside, prompting him to clean up the trash. David promptly shuts off his computer, causing the screens displaying missile trajectories in NORAD to vanish. Within the NORAD office, Paul rushes to General Jack and offers him the entire incident was actually a simulation orchestrated by an external party, and they've managed to trace the origin to the Seattle area. Returning to David's home, Mr. and Mrs. Lightman, his parents, commend their son for passing his class. On the news, a report details the previous night's occurrence, wherein the nation was gripped by a full-scale nuclear alert, erroneously believing that the Soviet Union had initiated missile launches. And as the report was unfolding, the telephone rings in the background, and David answers, and it turns out to be Jessica, reassuring him and urging him to remain calm. David tidies up his room and discovers that the computer had responded to his actions. He attempts to terminate the connection, or end the game, only to be informed by the system that he cannot do so unless he emerges victorious. Exiting a 7-Eleven convenience store, David becomes aware of being tailed by various men in cars, all wearing sunglasses and discreet earpieces. Gradually, they approach David and apprehend him, preparing to transport him to NORAD. And returning to NORAD, Dr. John enters a meeting where Paul provides an explanation of how David managed to breach the system, and David himself confesses to nearly attempting to hack into a game company server. Following the initial intrusion, NORAD made efforts to enhance security. However, the system unexpectedly reached out to David, causing confusion within the meeting. Dr. John proceeds to the infirmary, where David was restrained with handcuffs and urges him to cooperate. And as David was being interrogated, he is given a tour of the NORAD office, struggling to comprehend the fact that he's unwittingly become a pawn in someone else's game. While in Dr. John's office, he notices the DEFCON alarm shifting to level 3, and engaging with Joshua, the system, David engages in a conversation. Joshua displays the current analytics of the simulated war and explains that it could not locate Professor Falcon at the classified address. Intrigued, David inquires about the possible whereabouts, and the system provides him with a specific address, and unbeknownst to David, Dr. John's secretary observes him typing on a computer and promptly informs the authorities, leading to David's arrest. The officers discover David using the computer and escorts him back to the infirmary, and with the aid of a recorder and some medical equipment, David manages to bypass the key lock in the infirmary, and after successfully opening it, he relocks the infirmary and escapes the confines of the NORAD office alongside the visiting guests. Upon disembarking from the visitor's bus, David contacts Jennifer and requests her assistance in lending him some money. They mutually decide to venture to Falcon's address together, embarking on a journey that holds the promise of uncovering further revelations. After explaining the situation to Jessica, David and Jessica make their way to Dr. Falcon's secluded residence, finding him in the midst of flying a toy pterodactyl. As they engage with the professor, he initially asks them to leave the area. However, David persists, informing the professor that he came to discuss Joshua. Engaging in a heartfelt conversation, David and Jessica convey the gravity of the situation and their determination to stop Joshua. Instead of offering support, Dr. Falcon surprises them with a discouraging response, expressing regret for creating Joshua and the potentially catastrophic consequences that it presents. He shares his insights and experiences, leading him to believe that the situation is beyond their control and advises them to abandon their mission. With heavy hearts and conflicted minds, David and Jessica bid farewell to Dr. Falcon, deeply affected by his discouraging words. Their departure marks a crucial junction as they must decide whether to heed his advice or persist in their mission against all odds. And weirdly enough, something within Dr. Falcon prompts a change of heart. Realizing that he can't simply stand by and just let things happen without attempting to make a difference, he overcomes his initial doubts, and driven by a sense of responsibility and the urgency of the situation, he seeks out David and Jessica. Utilizing his helicopter, Dr. Falcon becomes an invaluable asset, providing transportation and strategic advantage. Dr. Falcon arrives with his helicopter to transport them to the NORAD office. In the final scene of the movie, they return to NORAD with the intent of halting the supercomputer Joshua. Navigating through the facility, they encounter various obstacles and challenges along the way, but eventually, they reach Joshua's control room where they confront the very powerful AI. Armed with their knowledge and resourcefulness, they engage in a battle of wits, attempting to outmaneuver the supercomputer's defenses. Their objective is to disable Joshua and prevent it from carrying out its destructive plans. Dr. Falcon explains that Joshua's primary purpose was to learn from history and comprehend the futility of war. And to illustrate this concept, he suggests a game of tic-tac-toe against Joshua. They select a simulated game where both sides are programmed to play optimally. As the game progresses, Joshua learns that tic-tac-toe always resulted in a draw when both players make optimal moves. This realization leads Joshua to comprehend the idea of futility, where no one can emerge victorious in a nuclear war scenario. With this newfound understanding, Joshua interrupts the countdown to a real nuclear launch just moments before impact. Joshua, now aware of the futility of war, communicates his decision to David and Falcon, taking the initiative to de-escalate the situation, and the computer prevents the launch. And finally, the crisis is averted, and a wave of relief washes over the characters, and the movie comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed the recap. Make sure to leave me a like, leave a comment, also subscribe to my channel. I love you guys so much, and I promise to see you on my next recap. Bye!